here's something I've been thinking about lately when it comes to music theory, because I often hear statements like, according to music theory, or so-and-so doesn't know theory but has great ears. As in, even though so-and-so doesn't know theory, their ears are good enough to still write music in line with music theory, or theoretically sound music, if you will. In my opinion, though, this actually makes no sense. The idea of theoretically sound music, it's just not a thing. It doesn't exist. Hi, my name is Philip and I make videos on music, art, and I guess creativity. Or the art of creative songwriting, if you will. I just made that up. So whether you know theory, don't know theory, believe in the value of knowing theory, or think that theory is a constrictive rulebook that kills all creativity and you should stay away from it at all costs, this video is for you, because I feel like we need to set the record straight. Okay, so what is music theory? Well, in a way, it's just labeling. It's sophisticated labeling, but it's still just labeling, because no matter how you use music theory, you're still just describing sounds and ways to put sounds together. For example, if I say a dominant 7th flat 5 chord, if you know your music theory, you'll know what intervals to play. And maybe you'll even have a good idea of where and how to use such a chord. But if I was to say, that weird sounding chord that worked so well as a transition before the key change in that one song, I'm still referring to the same thing, the same sound. The first label just makes things a lot easier because it's part of a shared language. And having quote-unquote good ears in this case just means that your ears can recognize this kind of a move from music you've heard in the past, and that it's a sound that you're familiar with but perhaps don't know the formal name for. So in this example, knowing theory is just another way to simplify the communication process. Having names for things helps with remembering and making concepts more tangible. For example, we know that having names for colors makes it easier for people to pick them out. And I don't think it's a very bold assumption to say that language shapes reality and our understanding of it. Take something like being bilingual or coming from a different cultural background than the one you're living in. If that's you, then you'll be familiar with the challenge of translating words that don't have a direct translation between languages. Because in knowing and understanding the word, you also need to know and understand layers of cultural nuance and context-specific values that are contained within that word and the use of it. In other words, if you understand the word, you also understand that you can't translate it without having to explain the values and behaviors of that specific culture in order to make sense of it. You have to bridge worlds, essentially. And sometimes that's very hard to do, because some cultures and languages don't really share a worldview, and fundamental assumptions about the world differ to such a degree that bridging that kind of gap wouldn't really work. It's more a case of separate or parallel paradigms, and this is, I think, similar to music theory. When we talk about theory, what we refer to typically is Western music theory, because again, the job of theory is to describe, to label. And our labeling tools were developed to label what was going on within the context of where the labeling was happening. I hope I'm making sense here. My main point is simply that music theory can be a great roadmap. But as with any map, it works best if it's a map of where you're hoping to go. A map of Europe will help you navigate Europe, but won't take you far in Africa, for example. So whether you like theory, don't like theory, are scared of theory, or whatever, keep in mind that it is nothing more than a labeling tool. In my case, it's been a fantastic tool for testing ideas and finding sounds that I like and that work well for expressing what I'm hoping to express. But music theory isn't going to tell you that going from a 1 to a flat 2 works really well in metal. No, your ears are going to tell you that going from a 1 to a flat 2 works really well for metal, and then you can turn to theory to learn that the name for that sound is Phrygian. And once you have an understanding of Phrygian, you can implement that understanding in your own writing and communication, as well as better tune your ears to it in music that you're listening to. But again, music theory is just labeling sounds. Did I mention that already? The label is Phrygian, but how to use it is up to you. You can even use it in a way that really puts the framework of that label to the test by mixing it up with other sounds, with other labels, in a way that basically erodes the concept of both. And that's okay too. It's more than okay. Because the important thing here is the sound, not the label. Music theory is not a rule book, and art doesn't have rules. It's not the Olympics. And you know what? That's gonna be all from me for today. Thank you so much for watching. Please take care wherever you are in the world and have a lovely day. I hope I see you in the next video. Bye bye.